Hello, my name is Maddox Wein. I'm a sixth grade student at Temple Shalom of Norwalk, Connecticut. Today I am here with my grandpa in Wilton, Connecticut, and I will be interviewing him for the Oral History Archives of the Jewish Historical Society of Fairfield County. And over the next 15 minutes or so, I will ask you questions that will help me learn more about your family's history, especially Jewish history. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Let's start with you telling me your full name.
My name is Howard Wein, and I live in Wilton, Connecticut.
If you know, can you tell us who you're named after?
Yes, I was named after my mother's uncle, and his first name was Harry, and they took the H, and my name is Howard.
Do you have a Hebrew name?
I do have a Hebrew name. It's sick.
In this class, I've been learning about the immigration of Jews. Do you know where your family is from?
Yeah, my mother's family is from parts of what was used to be Russia. The borders changed after the war. My grandmother came here as a 3-year-old, and she went to kindergarten actually in this country. My father's family is from parts of Poland, and they immigrated around 1912, before World War One, and my grandmother was married previous, and she had 3 daughters. So she immigrated from Europe with 3 daughters. And my father was born in 1925 in this country.
Do you know what it was like Jewish life in Poland and Russia?
I really don't know. Obviously, my father being born in this country, he was not exposed to that. And so nobody educated me. We never really discussed life growing up in Eastern Europe, pre World War One. So I'm really not very familiar with it now.
Oh, okay. Was anyone in the family directly affected by the Holocaust in Europe, or by anything else?
That's an interesting question because I've always wondered about that. And I had asked my mother about that. And because of when my family immigrated here, as far as I know, and as far as my mother knew, we were not directly impacted by the Holocaust. But I'll tell you, in talking to our local rabbi many years ago, he said that that's almost impossible, that we had to have been affected somehow. But I didn't know any family members or anybody directly related to the Holocaust itself. So I have no reference of that at all.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your family's immigration to here? Like, who came over, when, do you know why they left?
Well, most Jews left because of problems with the government, and they had pogroms. Again, it was never really discussed, so it's hard for me to be very specific. Like I said, my mother's family came roughly in uh, 1899 to, I don't know, 1902 roughly, and my father's family immigrated roughly before World War One, say 1912, 1913. My parents grew up in Brooklyn, and they met in school. They were boyfriend and girlfriend when they were like 11 and 12 years old. They were married 58 years. Um, but as far as their life or my grandparents or beyond that in Europe, I don't know. They never spoke about it, and so I don't have any really frame of reference about it.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about this artifact?
Okay, this is a picture of myself and my father and my two sons, and it represents three generations, and it's very meaningful to us that we were all together during this uh, period of time, and it's you don't often see that as much today, and it's a very special picture to me.
Do you know where and when this picture was taken?
That's a good question. I believe it was your dad's wedding.
Mm.
Okay, and he was married up in Brookfield, and that's where the picture. I think the picture's actually in the temple, but that's where the wedding was up in
Okay.
north of Danbury.
Okay. Now I would like to ask a few questions about life growing up. Where did you grow up, and who did you grow up with?
Okay, I grew up on Long Island. My parents were from Brooklyn. When my mother gave birth to me, they had an apartment in Queens. So my first couple of years, we lived in Glen Oaks, Queens, and then my parents bought a house in Long Island, and I grew up there until my early 20s. I have two sisters. We didn't have many family members out there. Uh, the family basically still lived in Brooklyn. Years later, some other family members moved to Long Island, and they moved to a couple of towns over. Um, the neighborhood that I grew up in was predominantly Jewish and Italian, um, and so my friends were either Jews or Italians, and at that point, that was my exposure to other cultures and things of that nature.
Okay. When you were a teenager, did you have a bar mitzvah?
Yes, I had a bar mitzvah. My bar mitzvah was February 22nd, 1964. Yes, I had a bar mitzvah.
Do you know what was the most meaningful part about it to you?
Well, the way the synagogue was structured, we spent 3 years in educational training for the bar mitzvah. And I learned a lot, getting up before a large group of people and citing the prayers and giving translations in our speech. It was very meaningful for me, and I do remember it quite well, yes.
Okay. Now I would like to talk about family traditions. What are your favorite food traditions? Like making some foods, lighting candles, or something else?
Right off the top of my head, some of the major holidays. Obviously, Hanukkah was a great holiday. It wasn't celebrated, in the 1950s and early 1960s the way it is today. Um, the gifts, there was not a lot of emphasis on the gifts. There was a lot of emphasis on the lighting and the story of Hanukkah, which we enjoyed. I always enjoyed Passover. Um, you know, telling the story, the four questions. That was very meaningful. We used to celebrate Passover with aunts and uncles and things of that nature. It was a very large celebration. We kind of equated it somewhat to like Thanksgiving today. It was a large family gathering, a lot of eating and stuff, and we, as a family, we truly enjoyed that.
Okay. Did anyone in your family that you know of serve in the military?
Yes, my father was an ensign in the Navy. He was in the Navy for about 5 years. And my mother worked as a secretary in the Navy. They were married at 18 during the war, and they lived in Norfolk, Virginia. And like I said, they spent about 5 years in the Navy.
How did you and Grandma meet?
We met in college. We actually met first week, and we started going steady right away. And we're going to celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary in May of next year, 2025, and it's been quick, but a great experience. been very good.
What did you do to make a living in your adult life?
I'm a financial advisor. Okay. My father was a financial advisor. So I went to work for my father when I was 24 years old. And he retired after about 10 years that I was in the business. And then so I then took over the company. And we had an office in Manhattan. We were on Park Avenue and 59th Street. And when he retired, I moved the office first to Greenwich and then Stanford, and now we have a Wilton office. And about 7 years ago, your father took over the helm from me. And so it's been a family business for 3 generations.
Oh, that's cool. Now we're going to wrap it up with one more question. What advice did you have for future generations like me?
Well, I think the most important thing I can tell you is educate yourself. Education is the most important thing you could have, and nobody could ever take that away from you. Find something you love to do, and there's an old saying: if the work that you do is something you love, you're not a slave to your work. You're doing something you enjoy. And I've had a career. My career is now 49 years long, and I love what I do. So to me, it's not working. And educate yourself and find an occupation that's going to make you happy.
Okay. Do you have anything else you would like to add?
Find a good partner. Okay. My father's advice to me is make a lot of decisions. Some are going to be right and some are going to be wrong. But who you marry, that should be you want that decision to be right. Because that's the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with.
Okay.
That would be my advice to you.